Dear listeners, a new day and a new story to discuss. Today, I'm going to tell you a story that interests me. Listen and write down what you think about this situation. I'm interested in your opinions. Our story began in the quaint, picturesque town of Maplewood, a place where everyone knew each other and life seemed to move at a leisurely pace. It was here that Nathan and I, Eliza, had decided to start our life together, a life brimming with hope and shared dreams. Our love story was not one of fairy tales but of shared passions and deep understanding. We met in college, where our mutual love for music and literature drew us together like magnets. Nathan, my beloved husband, was a man of few words but immense depth. His quietness was a stark contrast to my lively nature. Despite his reserved demeanor, he carried the weight of a troubled past. His father's untimely death when he was just a boy left a gaping hole in his heart, one that was filled too soon by a stepfather whose cruelty was unspeakable. One evening, as we sat on the porch of our new home, the one I had inherited from my grandparents, I finally found the courage to ask Nathan about his past. Nathan, I've always been puzzled about something, I said, my voice laced with concern. Why didn't your mother ever step in? How could she let someone be so cruel to her own son? Nathan looked away, his eyes distant. She knew, Eliza. She knew everything but chose him over me. I begged her to help, but she told me to endure it. His words broke my heart. And yet, you still keep in touch with her? I asked. Barely. I told her I'd support her if she left him, but until then, our contact is minimal, he replied, his voice tinged with a sadness that seemed to age him beyond his years. Our love had grown stronger over the years, leading us to a beautiful engagement. Nathan had become a beacon of strength and resilience, working hard to support himself through college and securing a good job. I too was thriving in my career. But our journey to matrimony was overshadowed by the specter of Nathan's mother, Margaret. Margaret's manipulative nature became apparent when Nathan started his new job. She expressed a desire to leave her abusive husband and latched onto Nathan, manipulating him into taking over her expenses. Nathan, I don't like how your mother is manipulating you. It's unfair to put all this on you, I said to him one day, my frustration evident in my tone. I know, Eliza. But if she's choosing me now, I feel it's my duty to support her, Nathan replied, torn between his sense of duty and the manipulation he couldn't see. Our first week as a married couple was supposed to be blissful, but it turned into a nightmare. Margaret arrived unannounced at our doorstep, her belongings in tow, as if she owned the place. Standing in the doorway, I couldn't hide my shock. Margaret, what on earth are you doing here with all these things? I asked, trying to maintain my composure. This is Nathan's house now, and I'm his mother. I have every right to be here, Margaret declared arrogantly, brushing past me as if I were invisible. Fury and disbelief warred within me. This house is mine, Margaret. You can't just decide to live here. But Margaret was unyielding. Nathan pays most of the bills, so I have the right to stay, she retorted, her tone dripping with entitlement. I turned to Nathan, who had just come in, his face a canvas of conflict and helplessness. Nathan, please tell me you knew nothing about this, I pleaded. He looked at me, pain etching his features. She said she had nowhere to go, Eliza. I thought, just for a while. That night, as Margaret settled into our home, I realized the battle we were about to face. Our sanctuary was now under siege. Our once peaceful home in Maplewood had become a battleground, with Margaret's unexpected arrival marking the beginning of a relentless struggle. As the days rolled into weeks, her presence loomed like a dark cloud over our marriage. Nathan, torn between his sense of duty and the undeniable truth of his mother's manipulative nature, was caught in an emotional whirlwind. Margaret's manipulation took on more insidious forms as time passed. She would often make snide remarks, especially when Nathan was not around. One day, while Nathan was at work, I found myself alone in the kitchen with her. Eliza, you do realize you're just a part of Nathan's life, right? I'm his mother. My place in his heart is unshakable, Margaret said, her voice dripping with condescension. I clenched my fists, trying to maintain my composure. Nathan loves us both, Margaret. But remember, I am his wife. Our relationship is different from yours. Oh, darling, you're so naive. A mother's bond with her son is eternal. You're just a passing phase, she replied with a smirk, leaving the room before I could respond. Her words stung, but I refused to let her see how much they affected me. Nathan and I had built our relationship on trust and mutual respect, something Margaret seemed intent on undermining. One evening, as Nathan and I sat in our living room, I decided to confront the issue head-on. Nathan, we need to talk about your mother. Her behavior is becoming unbearable. Nathan sighed, rubbing his temples. I know, Eliza. She's always been difficult, but she's still my mother. What do you suggest we do? It's not about what we do with her, Nathan. It's about setting boundaries. She can't just walk over us, especially in our own home, I said, my voice firm. Nathan nodded, understanding the gravity of the situation. I'll talk to her, Eliza. I promise. The next day, I overheard their conversation. Nathan's tone was firm yet respectful. Mom, I need you to understand something. This is Eliza's home, and you need to respect her. Your behavior lately has been unacceptable. Margaret's response was a mix of surprise and indignation. Nathan, I'm your mother. Are you really going to side with her over me? It's not about taking sides, Mom. It's about respecting my wife. Eliza is important to me, and you need to accept that, Nathan replied. Margaret stormed out of the room, clearly unhappy with the confrontation. I felt a small victory, but I knew this was far from over. The dynamics in the house continued to be strained. Margaret would oscillate between being overly sweet to Nathan and downright hostile to me. Her actions were like a game, each move calculated to drive a wedge between Nathan and me. One day, as I was arranging books in our study, I found an old photo album. Flipping through it, I saw pictures of Nathan as a child, his smile bright and innocent. My heart ached for the boy who had endured so much pain. It was then that I realized the depth of the emotional hold Margaret had over Nathan. That evening, as Nathan and I sat under the stars in our backyard, I gently broached the subject. Nathan, I saw your childhood photos today. You've been through so much. But remember, you're not that helpless child anymore. You have the power to stand up for yourself, for us. Nathan took my hand, his eyes reflecting a mixture of pain and gratitude. I know, Eliza. And I'm trying. It's just not easy to break free from a lifetime of manipulation. Our conversation was cut short by Margaret's call for dinner, a reminder of the uneasy truce that existed within the walls of our home. Life in Maplewood had taken a turn towards the surreal since Margaret's unwelcome arrival. Our home, once a haven of love and tranquility, had become a theater of silent battles and unspoken tensions. I, Eliza, found myself in the midst of this maelstrom, struggling to maintain the sanctity of our marriage while navigating the treacherous waters of Margaret's manipulation. As days turned into weeks, the atmosphere in our home grew increasingly stifling. Margaret's presence was like a dark cloud, looming over every moment, every conversation. Her insidious comments and underhanded tactics were a constant test of my patience and resolve. One evening, while Nathan and I were in the living room, an unexpected knock at the door shattered the uneasy calm. I opened it to find a delivery man, struggling under the weight of several large boxes. Delivery from Mrs. Margaret, he grunted, setting down the boxes with a thud. Confusion swirled within me as I signed for the delivery. Thank you, I muttered, my mind racing with questions. Nathan, hearing the commotion, came to investigate. His eyes widened in surprise as he saw the boxes. What's all this? He asked, his brow furrowing. Margaret appeared, a triumphant smile playing on her lips. Oh, just a few things I ordered for my stay here. I need to make my room more comfortable after all. Her casual dismissal of our concerns was like a slap in the face. I felt a surge of anger but held my tongue. Nathan, however, was not so restrained. Mom, you can't just order things without discussing it with us. This is our home, not a hotel, he said, his voice a mix of disbelief and irritation. Margaret's smile faded, replaced by a look of indignation. Nathan, I'm your mother. I have every right to make myself comfortable in your home. The tension in the air was palpable. I took a deep breath, trying to maintain a semblance of peace. Margaret, we need to talk about boundaries. This is not acceptable. She brushed past me, her demeanor one of utter disregard. I don't see why I should ask for permission in my own son's house. The following days were a whirlwind of unannounced changes. Margaret started rearranging furniture, redecorating rooms to her liking, and imposing her rules. Our home no longer felt like ours. It was as if we were living in Margaret's world, and we were merely guests. One morning, as I made coffee in the kitchen, I overheard a conversation that sent chills down my spine. Margaret was on the phone, speaking in hushed tones. Yes, he's completely under my control. Don't worry, I'll make sure he does what's necessary, she whispered, a sinister tone in her voice. The words echoed in my mind, igniting a fire of suspicion and fear. What was Margaret planning? Was she trying to turn Nathan against me? My heart raced with anxiety. That night, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling. The house was silent, but my mind was a cacophony of worries and doubts. I turned to Nathan, who was sleeping soundly beside me. "Nathan," I whispered, my voice trembling. "We need to do something. Your mother is taking over our lives, our home. We can't let this continue." But Nathan, lost in slumber, offered no response. I realized then that the battle for our home, our marriage, was mine to lead. Margaret had invaded our sanctuary, and it was up to me to reclaim it. As dawn broke, casting a soft light through our bedroom window, I made a decision. I would no longer be a passive victim in Margaret's game. In the quaint, yet now strained environment of our Maplewood home, the days seemed to stretch longer with Margaret's presence. The tension was palpable, a constant reminder of the intrusion that had disrupted our peaceful life. As I, Eliza, grappled with the ever-growing unease, I knew something had to be done, but what I discovered next was beyond my wildest expectations. It was a Tuesday morning, just like any other, when the seeds of suspicion that had been planted in my mind began to sprout. Nathan had left early for work, and I found myself alone with Margaret. Her demeanor had shifted subtly over the past few days, veering between forced sweetness and barely veiled hostility. As I was tidying up the guest room where Margaret stayed, a piece of paper slipped out from under the bed. Curiosity piqued. I picked it up. It was a receipt for high-end surveillance equipment. My heart skipped a beat. Why would Margaret need such things? That evening, when Nathan returned, I showed him the receipt. His brow furrowed in confusion as he scanned the document. Surveillance cameras? Why would Mom need these? He wondered aloud, his voice tinged with concern. "I don't know, but we need to find out," I said, the gravity of the situation weighing heavily on me. We decided to confront Margaret about it. The confrontation, however, did not go as planned. Margaret brushed off our concerns with an air of nonchalance. "Oh, those are just for my safety. You know, a woman living alone needs to feel secure," she said, her tone dismissive. But her explanation didn't sit right with me. There was something more, something sinister lurking beneath her words. Nathan seemed to accept her explanation, but I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being played. Determined to get to the bottom of it, I reached out to a friend who worked in home security. "Jack, I need your help," I said over the phone, my voice barely above a whisper. "What's going on, Eliza?" Jack's voice was laced with concern. "I think someone is planning to install surveillance equipment in our home without our consent. Can you come over and do a sweep of the house?" "Of course. I'll be there tomorrow." True to his word, Jack arrived the next day with his equipment. As he moved through the house, scanning each room, the tension mounted. And then, in the attic, a discovery that turned our world upside down. Jack held up a small, sophisticated camera. This was hidden behind some old boxes. It's a high-resolution camera, definitely not for personal safety. My heart raced as the implications of the discovery sank in. "Can you check the rest of the house?" I asked, my voice barely audible. Jack nodded and continued his sweep. By the end of it, he had found several more hidden cameras, all strategically placed to monitor the most private areas of our home. Nathan was aghast. "My own mother? Spying on us? It's unbelievable." But the betrayal ran deeper than we thought. Later that day, while going through some old files in the study, I stumbled upon a series of emails on Nathan's computer, emails between Margaret and a private investigator. They detailed a plan to gather evidence against me, to paint me as unfaithful and unworthy of Nathan. The revelation hit me like a tidal wave. Margaret wasn't just invading our privacy, she was actively trying to sabotage our marriage. That night, as Nathan and I sat in the living room, the air heavy with betrayal and shock, we knew we had to act. "Nathan, we can't let this go on. Your mother has crossed every line imaginable," I said, my voice trembling with emotion. Nathan nodded, his expression one of resolve mixed with pain. "I know, Eliza. I'll confront her. This ends now." But as we braced ourselves to face Margaret, little did we know that the web of deceit she had woven was far more intricate than we could have ever imagined. The once serene atmosphere of our Maplewood home had been irrevocably shattered, like a mirror reflecting a fractured reality. The deceit of Margaret, a woman I had struggled to accommodate as my mother-in-law, now loomed over us like a dark, ominous cloud. My husband Nathan, usually a paragon of calm and stoicism, was caught in the storm, his emotions a whirlwind of betrayal and disbelief. I remember it was a rainy Thursday evening when the full extent of Margaret's treachery came to light. Nathan and I sat in the dimly lit living room, the only sound the rhythmic tapping of rain against the windows. The air was thick with tension, the kind that precedes a storm. "Nathan, we can't let this continue. Your mother has been spying on us, plotting against me. It's monstrous," I said, my voice trembling with a mixture of anger and disbelief. Nathan, his face etched with lines of distress, nodded slowly. I know, Eliza. I never imagined. I need to confront her. This ends tonight. As we ascended the stairs to confront Margaret, my heart pounded in my chest. The hallway seemed longer, more ominous than ever before. Nathan's hand, usually a source of comfort, felt tense and unyielding. We found Margaret in her room, a picture of innocence, reading a book. The sight of her, so serene amidst the chaos she had caused, fueled my anger. Mother, we need to talk, Nathan began, his voice uncharacteristically harsh. Margaret looked up, her expression one of feigned surprise. Nathan, what's wrong? You seem upset. Upset? You've been spying on us, plotting to turn me against Eliza. How could you? Nathan's voice rose with each word, his usual composure crumbling. Margaret's eyes narrowed, the mask of innocence slipping. Nathan, you don't understand. I did it for you. That woman, she said, pointing at me, she's not right for you. I was just trying to protect you. The audacity of her words struck me like a physical blow. Protect him? By invading our privacy, by trying to sabotage our marriage? I countered, my voice laced with fury. The confrontation escalated, words flying like arrows in a battlefield. Margaret's justifications and accusations fell on deaf ears. Nathan, once a dutiful son, now saw the truth behind the facade. I trusted you, Mother. You've betrayed that trust in the worst possible way. You need to leave. Now, Nathan declared, his voice resolute. Margaret's face contorted with anger and disbelief. You're choosing her over your own mother? It's not about choosing, Mother. It's about respect, trust, something you've shattered beyond repair, Nathan replied, his words cutting through the tense air. Margaret packed her things, her movements sharp and jerky, a physical manifestation of her inner turmoil. As she left, she turned to me, her eyes filled with a venomous mix of anger and defeat. You think you've won, Eliza. But remember, a mother's influence is a powerful thing. Nathan will always be my son, she hissed, her words a final attempt to wound. The door closed behind her with a finality that echoed through the now empty corridors of our home. Nathan and I stood in silence, the weight of the moment pressing down on us. In the days that followed, the house felt different, emptier, yet somehow more ours than it had ever been. The deceit and manipulation that had pervaded every corner were gone, but so was the illusion of a happy family. Nathan and I, though united in our stand against Margaret, found ourselves navigating a new reality. Trust, once broken, is not easily mended. The shadow of Margaret's betrayal lingered, a reminder of the fragility of relationships and the destructive power of manipulation. As I sit here, recounting the events that tore our world apart, I realize that our story is far from over. The wounds are still fresh, the path to healing uncertain. But one thing is clear, the battle for our home, our marriage, is a testament to our strength, our resilience. And in this journey, fraught with pain and betrayal, we have found a deeper understanding, a stronger bond. But the road ahead is long, and only time will tell what lies at its end.